Welcome. This is the 3D creation channel, and we're going to start creating objects. If you want to make requests on what objects we create, you can go to Patreon. There's a link in my channel, and you can become a patron and make requests on what gets made next. Okay, so first let's find something. So the copyright here, it's 0 CCO public domain. So what that means is Creative Commons 0 attribution. So you don't have to, keep making sure that you put the creator, the photographer's name and all of your links to all the downloads for this object. If you make this in 3D, you can use it in videos, video games, whatever you want. You don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to worry about getting sued. So this is the best, bar none, the best type of license, because it's literally saying you can do it. What I'm going to do is just take this image into Photoshop and crop it and rotate it so it's a little easier to work with. It's not so rotated and unruly. It's just a lot of extra stuff we don't need. And it optimizes it and also makes it easier to model in 3D. So I'm just going to select with the in Photoshop the polygon selection tool and just select around it in a square shape here. Oh, right here, edit, free transform, or Control T. We're back. Okay, Control T or edit, free transform, and I'm just going to rotate it and line it up with the edge of the. Then save as, and then save it as a JPEG. And I'll just overwrite the original if that's what it does. And I usually do a compression rate of 9 because 10 to 12 is for maximum resolution, but when you're working in virtual worlds, you want to compress a little bit. And just saves time downloading so much. A blank file of SketchUp, 3D software, drawing software. I like SketchUp because it's simple and it works for a lot of just basic modeling of objects. It's a little bit no nonsense. So let's grab this new image we have and just drag it into the SketchUp window from Windows Explorer, and it will bring that image into 3D. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is right now it's not a face or a texture or 3D, it's just an image, a plane. And I can't do anything with it, I can't model with it. So I'm going to right click and say explode. Now it's a face with 4 lines and turn it into a 3D object. And it also created a texture. So if I go to my materials tab and click on the home button, I'll see my texture right there. So just right clicking an image and saying explode does all of that with one function. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select it again. Now all those lines, all 4, and then the face, and right click and say make group. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to scale this group. And first I'm going to double click. Now I'm inside the group. You can see that by the dotted line around it. Let me turn my music back on. Okay. There we go. Get into the groove here. So in 3D, there's always a an outer face and a back face or an inner face. So I don't like to have the texture on both sides because then I never know which one is the outside, which is the inside. So I'm gonna go to my materials tab, select the default material, and paint bucket it onto the bottom side of that 3D plane. So you can see here my outer is going to be white and my inner is going to be this yellowish, tannish color, the tan. So if I were to put that default material on the outer, it would turn white, and then, but I don't want to do that because I want to leave my texture there. So that's good. Now the very next thing we want to do is scale it. So right now, if I just use a pencil tool and draw a line from this end to this end, down in this window right here, it says 27 feet 3 inches, and that's not the size of a pencil. That's like the size of an airplane. So we're going to scale it automatically, and I'm just going to take a wild guess that it's about 5 inches long. So I'm going to double click in that group, and there's a trick. You select on the tape measure tool in SketchUp, and you measure one corner to the other corner, and it will give you the actual dimension. So you click, and then you type in what you want it to be. So I'll say 5, enter, and it will say, do you want to resize the group or component? Yes. So now it resized it to, instead of just measuring it, I actually told it to be 5 inches long. So now if I draw a pencil line from one end to the other, it will say down here in the bottom right corner 5 inches. So now it's scaled properly. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just center this on the world axis, just so that when you import it into your scene or your video game or whatever, it's centered, so it's not off. There's, the point of origin, you can move, rotate, scale around the center point. And you also want it to be setting on the ground. So for example, if you brought this pencil into a video game, you click on a table, you would want it to set right down on the table, and that's why you want it on the ground plane. So you define what your ground plane is in your virtual world. So now I can explode that group because I'm done scaling it and centering it. So now I can start modeling it, and I'm just going to turn off this axis too. So I'm going to go to Style, Window, Edit, and then the last one I can turn off Model Axis. So just to clear up the screen and get it, so I already know it's in the right spot to start my modeling process. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, just so that I have the texture, because when I start modeling it, I'm going to mess up the texture. But I want a clean texture that's properly scaled and in the right place. So I'm going to use the Move tool and hold Control while I'm moving. It'll move a copy. So I'll just have a copy. I'll turn shadows off. I don't need shadows on right now. So now I can use this to model with, and then this will be my texture projection. So there's going to be this, when I assess what this is, there's going to be two objects. I mean, unless you want the cover to be able to be removed, but I'm going to take a wild guess that our virtual world isn't going to be that intricate that you can actually remove covers of things and put them back on. So I'm just going to model this whole pencil as one cylinder, and then model the little metal clip as one separate object. So let's do the clip first. So I'm going to turn on X-ray mode. And there's another trick. So since this object is so small, when I'm modeling, it's very difficult because the units are too small, and the snapping, it will be like, oh, I want to snap to 1/16 of an inch usually, or 1/8 of an inch, and you can't model this much detail. So what I usually do is I blow up the object, I'll turn it into a group, and then I'll scale. I'll use the scale tool and start scaling it and type in 10, enter, and that will scale it up by a factor of 10. So instead of 5 inches, it should be 50 inches. It's 4'2". So it will just make it easier to model, and it's just something I've learned over the years that the units are easier to model at a little bit bigger size, and then when I'm done modeling it, I'll just scale it back down and type in 0.1 enter, and then it will go back to 5 inches to the proper scale. Okay, so right now I'm going to model it at 50 inches. I'm going to explode my group again and start modeling. So for this metal clip part, I'll start off using the pencil tool. First I'm going to save the file. Just save it as pen. There we go. And it's a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to model this with the pencil tool, draw a line, and then I'm going to use the arc tool. And by default, the arc tool has 12 sides, but I don't need that many. I'm gonna type in. So I'll click on the arc tool, type in 5, and hit enter. Now it only has 5 sides. That should be plenty for this small of an object. If it was a much bigger object and you were getting closer to it, I would do more sides. You know, it could be 10, 20, 40, 100, depending on the size of the object in the real world units in the virtual world, so to speak. So I'm doing another arc for that side. I'll just keep doing arcs. Just click one side of the arc, the other side, and then the middle. And then I'll do a little line here. And another arc. And another line. Pencil tool. Another arc. Make sure I can see the chat. Okay. So what I'm going to do when I get all the way around the outside of this metal object, I'm going to close the loop. And the reason why is I can use an offset tool to create my thickness here, so I don't have to redraw all those lines again. And I'll just go over here, go to the offset tool right here, and I'll just offset it, and it will draw those lines for me. Then I'll just clean up the rest of these lines where they're supposed to be drawn. And then use the eraser tool to erase the extra lines that I don't need. There. So I'm going to select, now that I created a closed loop there, I can select that face and make a copy of it. Hold Control, move, and then I have the right shape for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the default material to both sides to make sure it's just for modeling purposes. I like to see, like I said before, the white is the outer, the tan is the inner. So I'll use the push-pull tool and give that a thickness. So now that's it, we've got our metal clip. We can delete this face because you'll never see it. Okay, and the important thing is to anything that doesn't need to be there is to get rid of it, because it just creates more work on the computer. You know, bigger file sizes for no reason, and then just when you're creating virtual worlds, you want things to be as optimized as they, if it doesn't help make them look any better or function any better, don't do it, just leave it out. And now these lines, we want these to be smooth. So there's a trick with the eraser tool. There's actually 3 functions in one tool. So if you just use the regular eraser, it'll delete the line, which will delete the face. So we don't want that. If you hold Shift, it'll have a dark symbol next to it. It will hide the line, but it won't smooth the line. So the light is still making it look like it's a crease. So I'll undo that. But if you hold Control, there's a light symbol next to it, and it will actually smooth the light to bend it to make it look like it's a rounded object. And that's what I'm going to do. So eraser tool, hold Control on those 2 lines, and that smooths it out. Same for all of these. Not the ones on the end though, because I actually want that to be creased to give it better definition. But anything with a curve, I usually smooth it out. Makes it look better. Now that I'm done with that, I will reapply. Now that I know that the white is on the outside, the tan is on the inside, everything is the way it should be. Because some game renders or virtual rendering software won't render the inside because it's trying to optimize. So this way, you'll never have that problem of missing like models that come in with holes in them. And it looks like there's holes in them, but they're not. It's just actually the normals are flipped. So this is the outer normal, inner normal. All 3D surfaces have outer and inner normals. So now I'll use the eyedropper tool, select on my texture projection, and then apply it back to there. And it doesn't look that good because really the metal is kind of blurry in this image. The image is kind of low resolution once you get down to this level of detail. So there's a couple ways I could handle it. I could try to salvage some of this texture pixels, but that would probably be time consuming. So what I'll do is I'll create a new texture in here. I'll just go colors, and I'll just pick a new material, go to edit, say use texture image, and then I'll find a generic metal texture. So I'll go, I have a few saved here, metal, and I'll just give it one of these generic. These are a little bit bigger files. I like the texture, but it's a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it and go into Photoshop and make it a smaller texture. We don't need it that big. It's a 1 megabyte texture. If it was a huge object, it's nice to have that high resolution. So I'm going to copy this and go into Photoshop and just flatten it, and I'll decrease the image size to 256. This should be good for a smaller object like this. So if I go to 100%, that should be fine for this small of an object. So I'll save the Photoshop file, save the JPEG. Go back to my model and apply that. So now I've got that generic metal texture on there. I can mess with the scale of it. Maybe 3 inches. That looks pretty good for now. Maybe I'll try something. Yeah, that looks a little better. Okay. So now we've got 2 textures, the metal and then the original image. And for the actual pencil, we're going to use the image. So I'm going to select that whole thing, and then say right click, make group. So now that object is done. So just one object to go, which is the cylinder of the pencil. So I can delete, I'll double click that, and delete it. Now I'm just gonna make this a group. Double click on it, right click, make group, and then double click in that group. And now I have a little trick. There's a button that you can do view, component edit, hide rest of model. So when you're inside of a group or a component, you can work on it in the modeling without having the rest of it in your way. And I'll turn on X-ray mode. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line straight through the middle of this pencil. Okay. This looks pretty close to the middle. Okay, then I'm going to delete half of it. Then I'm going to trace the other half. So for this, I can hold down Shift and it will lock that line and I can pull it over, decide where I want it to go to. So this is like a little spiral thing. Go down to here. It's you're seeing a lot of other things from the pencil being a little bit rotated, but in reality I think this is what it looks like if you were able to look at it straight at the side of it. And I'm going to use the move tool and move some of these lines down. A little bit. And I can add to my selection by holding Shift or take it away by holding Control and Shift. I'll move these lines down. Okay. So now I trace the outside. Oh, I forgot the little tip there. Okay. So I'll delete these extra lines on the outside. I don't need those anymore. Those are remnants of the image that we imported. Okay, so we traced half of the cylinder perfectly. We're gonna save it at this point, just in case it crashes on us. So now we need to draw a circle on this side. So I'll pick the circle tool, and by default there's 24 edges. I'm going to bump it up to 32, just because 24 sometimes it looks a little chunky. And I need it to snap a different direction, so I'm going to have to draw just a little bit of a face here. I'm going to draw a square with the pencil tool, turn off X-ray mode. That way when I do the circle tool, I can snap it to this face, and then hold down Shift, and then snap it to that corner there, and then go to that corner with a second click. So there's the radius of our pencil, and I'll delete the extra lines. Now we're gonna do a follow me function. In other software it's called a revolve function, but in SketchUp it's called follow me. So you can do it as a cylinder, or you can actually follow it around the edge of a winding path. It doesn't matter which. In some software it's called loft. So basically SketchUp, other software it's either a loft or a revolve, and in SketchUp they're both called follow me. So first you click the path, which is that face, and then you find the follow me tool right there. Click on that, then you click the object face, and then it revolves it around that. So all we have to do is draw a line with the pencil tool to close up this end face, and then use the eraser tool to erase the extra line. And now our pencil is modeled. We're going to explode that group. Click out of the group, right click, explode. And with that selected, we're going to reapply the texture from this face, project it down onto that. So what happens if I move it a little bit and reapply this? The eyedropper. Ooh, yeah, there it is. We did it. Perfect. I think I still left it big pen, 50-foot long pen. Or not 50-inch long pen. Yep, it is. Okay. Now that we're done, let's get the scale correct. Double click on this component, use this tape measure tool, click on one end, click on the other end, and then type in 5, enter. So now it should have rescaled it to be 5 inches long, which it did. Okay, now I just have to find the center of the origin axis again. So I'm going to go to my styles window and turn on the model axis so I can realign it with where it's supposed to be. Right now it's sitting below the ground. Okay, back in business. I'll have to readjust these views. Right click the view, update, readjust each one. Update, and then the overall overhead view. Right click, update, turn off model axis, and